This guy is going to be taking on the Rhino, Ken Buck. Trent, welcome to the show, man. Introduce yourself.
Hey, thank you for having me on. My name's Trent Leisy. I'm running for Congressional District 4 out here in Colorado to unseat the Rhino Ken Buck.
Well, that's and as I don't know, some form of vengeance or to teach a lesson. They don't want to put a conservative in there. They have to have a uniparty stooge again.
America should become is the greatest country on this planet, and it should come first before any other foreign entity or those flowing over the southern border.
Trent, before you got into politics, man, kind of tell everybody, maybe somebody in the audience first time hearing about you or anything like that. What was your background?
Here in Colorado, I work in agriculture. I work with farmers in 5 states. I've always been intrigued with politics. From starting out from the Gore Bush, and I've always been intrigued since. I've served on a school board. I've ran for school board a second time. I currently sit on a Weld County Council here in the county. I have a lot of political background or political experience.
Amen.
Amen.
Well,
Yes.
was there any particular event, some kind of breaking point that made you decide to throw your hat in the ring and take?
I've known him. And so, what really did it for me was, the January 6th deal and how, he wants the prisoners to remain behind the bars. And if you go back on Ken Buck's history back in 2015, 16, when he ran, he was anti-Trumper from the beginning, and he wanted Trump to get out. The Republican Party was dead. In 2018, he voted against the border wall funding, and the list just goes on. I mean, here just should be impeached, that there's no evidence of impeachment. And so, the list goes on. He claims that Trump is a convicted felon. Here's a guy who is a
What?
former yeah, here's a guy prosecutor, and here's the man that doesn't believe in due process. First, he went from saying, "Well, I'm not going to vote for Trump if he is a convicted felon," to just the last couple days saying Trump is a convicted felon. And so,
I knew Ken Buck was bad, but my goodness, he might be the worst Republican in the DC swamp right now, from based on everything that you're telling me so far.
well, he is, and he's been that way.
Trent, is this like a purple district, or is this like a safe red district? Like what's the
Well,
district
and
makeup?
here's what's funny about Colorado. Colorado's the mini California.
Yeah.
That's what they
Yeah.
say out here. But this district, Congressional District 4 here in Colorado, break it down, it's the only conservative district in Colorado that's super conservative. Obviously, Lauren Boebert's district was conservative, but due to the redistricting, she's going to have a really tough race. And so here it was just a lot of people aren't engaged, aren't involved, and so over the years, is this just these representatives have been handpicked by their predecessors to take over.
Well, you mentioned Lauren Boebert's fight in the redistricting. So I do think that's something else that we should really highlight, because it's very important to get. Well, government is doing everything they can to manipulate the system. And what's the term they like to use now? Proof the elections. What's the word I'm looking for? They want to fix them is essentially what they want to do.
Yeah,
But they're trying to
yeah.
stack the deck against you. So we need. Well, in Colorado, needs somebody up there that will be a real fighter, will stand up to them, and will actually push back, and not just.
Lauren Boebert, the redistricting really hurt her. In 2022 last year, she won by maybe 150 some votes. I mean, it was super close.
Yes.
She's in a tough race. From my understanding, the way the polls look is that if she was to run today, she'd probably lose. But we need her. We need everybody to fight for her. And, she's taken a lot of flack over the McCarthy thing and, what she did with that to be. Where she was when it came to voting for the speaker, McCarthy, as she is now, where she's just really, really taken a back seat to all this. And, you know, I, I go back and forth on whether or not that's the right thing to do, but we do need her, and we do need that seat to stay red.
Well, there's a couple things here. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Dahlstrom in the Rumble chat catching their first live, and then Poppy says we need so many fighters. I have to agree. The low hanging fruit for America First, MAGA, the Patriots across this country. I think the low hanging fruit is not flipping blue districts red, but flipping our red districts red. And what I mean by that are the safe districts such as yours and mine and so many others across this country right now. I mean, when you break it down, there's probably roughly 70 that is like blood red. It doesn't matter who can replacing with Trent Leisy here. I mean, that's like getting another Matt Gaetz in the Congress, which is what we need. Imagine we had 70 Matt Gaetz across the country. And these are the races that I think that America First MAGA patriots need to put our focus on to make these major upgrades, such as you over Ken Buck.
Yeah, I said it on Sunday during my announcement, my kickoff camp, kicking off my campaign here in Colorado with the amazing Vernon Jones. It's going to be about flipping blue seats to red seats. It's really going to be about flipping these red swampy seats that are held by the establishment, the rhinos, to America First Patriot seats.
Can you imagine the number of cry closets we'd need if you actually had 70 Matt Gaetz in Congress? I don't think they could build them fast enough.
Yes. Well, like him, because he's out for a big contract with CNN. There's a lot of indications he's not going to even run after the first of the year. He'll finish out his term. But, he tried to come off as like this crusader of why he voted with Matt Gaetz. But then he turns around and he dislikes every person that's being put up for speaker. And it's like, so to me, I feel like, hey, he doesn't like Emmer. He dislikes him, but then he doesn't like any of the other candidates and, has attacked everyone who have voted to overturn the rig election. And so,
well, and the one vote with Matt Gaetz does not overturn and overcome all the other garbage that you already mentioned that he's voted for, not to mention, most of all, his seat in Congress and that, the things that come with that to bash President Trump. That's absolutely ridiculous, especially in an R plus double digit, 10, 15 district. Those are the districts that we need to have people who are beating the drum of freedom, not only for your district, but for American patriots all across the country. So his one vote with Matt Gaetz doesn't overcome any of that.
Well, no, and look, I believe, Matt Gaetz, in my opinion, is the first true patriot that was able to get 210 Democrats to vote with him.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. When has that happened in history? Not send money to Ukraine. And, he's come out of, well, if his big deal with Jim Jordan is, Jim Jordan wanted to defund Jack Smith and his stupid investigation into President Trump that is, in my opinion, not warranted. And so that is his constituency is CNN. It's not the people that live here and vote for him here in Congressional District 4.
Well, here's the cool thing too, Trent, is we know Trump is not going to endorse Ken Buck. So I mean, you got a really good shot at getting that endorsement, I'd imagine, as well. Which would be incredible, and I hope you get it. So there's a lot of national races that turn national for different reasons, and Ken Buck being somebody that is known, but not for the right reasons in the conservative circles, in a district such as yours, I think that your race is one of those that has the potential to turn national rather quickly.
I think it is. I mean, I've told supporters as well as my campaign staff that I really feel like that this is dropped. I've gotten zero or little PR time with the local news. In fact, I was interviewed for about 20 minutes by one of the local our Denver channels, and they never aired a single word of it. It's because look, Ken Buck fits their narrative.
Yep,
sure. Ken Buck's out there saying, "Oh, I'm getting evicted from my office." Well, he's not being evicted. In fact, the same news and she said, "Oh, no, we're just in contract." But there is absolutely no eviction. And they turn around 5 hours later, went on TV in Denver and said, "Oh, he's being evicted from his office, and how horrible is this?" And all these death threats, and it's just
provable. So, out of curiosity, with the current, what are we left with? 6 contenders right now for Speaker of the House. If you were in there right now and you had a chance to vote, who would you throw your support behind out of the, I believe, 6 that are still remaining?
I mean, I love Jim Jordan. I wish he was still at stuff on one of the Twitter Spaces today that said he made some deal about a new office or something. I don't really care about that. It's like, hey, we need him in there, and we need an American first guy that's going to go in there and you know lay whatever he can on the doorstep of Chuck Schumer and say, this is what we're going to do. You either agree with it or take a hike.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I think that it's important for the American people. They have to get whoever we want as speaker, just as if just the way that McCarthy had to end up getting, Matt Gaetz and people like that's votes or not president, had to work out some deals there to make that happen. But even if we have to make some concessions to get a Freedom Caucus member as the speaker, it comes with a lot of power that people don't really pay attention to. Everybody pays attention to what's happening in the chambers and on the floor, but they don't understand that the speaker has the ability to, send some in legislation before it even comes to the floor, killing it behind the scenes, if you will. And that's what we need right now. And I hope that the Freedom Caucus members hold the line and say, look, it's going to be a Freedom Caucus member who is the Speaker of the House.
I just want people to stand on principle and say,
Yep.
look, this is what we're going to do, and not waver on that. And I look, I just feel like we need to be all the candidates running, all the American First candidates running, to stand on principle, whether or not they win or lose. I mean, obviously we want them to win, but for me, I would rather go down knowing that I stood on my principles than tried to waver
Amen.
just to get the job. He's got to probably be a little sensitive in terms of making sure he gets those more moderate people on his side, but when it's all said and done, I mean, I just feel like he's the best guy for the job to be in there to really move this Congress. Enough's enough.
Yeah. Well, I agree. Like, I do think Byron Donalds is definitely my number one choice, especially because he's great at articulating his thoughts and handling the media. He does not tolerate stupid questions, and he's always willing to push back. He's always got those sarcastic answers ready to go. He's perfect at creating those kind of sound bites that we desperately need. And the kind of damage to our enemies is good in my books. But I mean, I would take Jordan too, because again, this is somebody that's extremely intelligent, very articulate, and he's also Biden crime family and pursuing some of these things. And I think Kevin McCarthy's one of his biggest mistakes, besides not releasing all the J6 footage, was backing down and not moving forward with these investigations and impeachments that he promised, instead just sitting there, finally starting the investigation into the Biden crime family. Am I off on this?
No, I completely agree with you on that. I really like Jim Jordan. I've met him. He's a great guy, and but I think Byron will be the right guy for the job. And I really want these guys to follow through with what they say. You would probably echo that, wouldn't you? So
Absolutely, absolutely. But I want to. Godward in the Rumble chat here has brought up a really good point too that I wanted to kind of touch on with you guys. Is why are they holding these secret votes? They go out and then he loses, and then today they were having all these secret ballots. I mean, like, I get it to an extent because they want to be, their argument is going to be, oh, we want to be unified publicly, which that's already out the window. Like, bring this out. Stop being hiding in the basement. Stop hiding from the American people, and come out here and stand up for what you really stand for and believe in, so we can see it. Yeah. So we know whether we want to hire you or.
Point is, on Friday when we were rallying in front of Ken Buck's office, the one he's supposedly getting evicted from, one of the constituents asked his district director, like, hey, why can't he come out here and speak to the people? Why can't he come and say, hey, this is why we
know that's why we're frustrated.
Yeah. Isn't that part of the problem?
Well, there's things, yeah. She's like, well, there's things that that get done that just can't get out to the people. And it's like, but you're supposed to represent us. You are taking my tax dollar to pay for your salary to not tell me what's going on, but yet go on CNN, on a hate news network and say, how the grassroots movement is silly, and that we shouldn't be. Yep. Well,
Well, I'll tell you something I think is going to help with that, though, honestly, is it's going to take a little while for this transition to happen, I believe. And I could see this maybe on both sides, Democrat and Republican. The Twitter spaces, for instance. You
yeah.
know, I mean, you got Trent here who has already been in them and he's not even elected yet. And you're starting to get some Congress people who are hopping in there. Transparency with that, just from these people having the ability to hop on and do that. And then furthermore, I think it's going to be huge for them to hear from the American people. They're
Yes.
surrounded in the swamp, whether they are wanting it to happen or not. They're allowing that influence to kind of shape their worldview, and when they're in there in the swamp, and this is going to allow them to still be in the swamp, but still hear from American people all across the country. What do you got? What are your thoughts on that, Trent?
Yeah, I mean, I look back at during COVID, right? Zoom really helped parents time and time again, where social media has been, it's been, helped us be able to see what's going on. And yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we're getting to the point, where, the accountability factor for our elected representatives is going to increase even more with with what Twitter's doing with these spaces, and I'm sure there's more technology yet to come in the next few years. But
Bigger and bigger thing as you can hold these virtual town halls, speak to tens of thousands of people, if not more, and
mhm.
bring up whoever you want to kind of control who's asking questions and what's being said there. And I think that's big because you got to suppress the troll. You can get your agenda out and also get feedback from your constituents, and maybe recalibrate your objectives. If you hold one of these spaces and find out that something is a lot more important to the people in your district than you thought it was, reprioritize. But I think it's a great opportunity, and that's something that Elon Musk has really brought to the table. It's better than it was, and it is becoming a tool that is very, very useful to people on the right, whereas before, we might as well not have even existed on there.
Yeah, I mean, you look at 2 years ago and how
Mm-hmm.
Twitter was. We conservatives had no outlet. They had
Mm-hmm.
no outlet. Everything was shut down. Everything was censored. But you know what? Constituents, it's 22 counties here in Colorado, and so a lot of my constituents don't have Twitter, or they don't, understand social media. And so I think, the key is, and what I'm hearing in my district is that, they want to see a representative. And I think that there has to be a combination of both. And I encourage, all these elected representatives to not just hide behind social media, but also get out and meet and look your constituents in the eye.
Very true.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Trent, man, what are some of the biggest things you're running on? I mean, what's your main message to not just people in your district? I mean, as the same way. So, kind of what is your message to the American people? What are they going to see from you as a member of Congress?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things I'm running on here is, the border. The border is such a huge issue, and
Yep.
we have this influx, and really, we're at war here, guys. I mean, we have this invasion on the southern border, and what comes with that invasion? In youth and young adults here, and so Ken Buck's not doing any of that. And you look at his policy, and in 2018 he voted against the border wall. He has not supported Trump when he was, really pushing to secure that border. And when we had that border secure, we didn't have the fentanyl deaths here in Colorado that we had. So that's a huge issue that people here in Colorado are saying, enough's enough. Citizens that live here.
Amen.
So that's a huge issue here. Agriculture is a big component in this congressional district. The majority of it is agriculture, and under the Biden administration, agriculture has suffered severely. Under the Trump administration, it suffered, but not to the degree as it did now. But the one thing that Trump did was he fulfilled his promise to the farmers, which was he renegotiated trade deals with China, with Mexico, and hasn't done anything for farmers. And so, that's a huge issue here, that we're facing here in Colorado.
Well, yeah, and
So,
with the Biden regime and farmers specifically, he's really gone the other direction. They've made it more difficult. They're talking about now further regulations on fertilizers, and you have them putting in these carbon capture pipelines in several states that are very taxpayer money on these green energy carbon capture schemes, which just go to line excuse me, line the pockets of those that support the DNC and the Uniparty. But that's the the game they play. We could do something that'd be good for America and the world, but instead we go the other direction and we do what the globalists want, which only harms all of us.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we all agree that, we could be good stewards of the land, do our part, but not at the cost of killing our economy. I mean, we do nothing to hold China or India accountable. All we do is pour billions of, and it's hurting, it's hurting our economy, it's hurting farmers, and what the consumer doesn't understand is that's where this starts. It starts on the
Yep.
farm, and if you're going to hinder the farmer, then the cost of production goes up. The processing costs go up, the transportation costs go up, and then by the time you administration.
I'll tell you, Trent, I think that's the reason that the Biden administration is in trouble here in 2024, though, because, we had a silent majority in 2016, and there was a little bit of a silent majority in 2020, but everybody talks about the silent majority in 2016. But they can try to lie about other things going on in the world and in the country on the media. As all these things are just through the roof compared to what they were. You can't lie to those people because I mean they're seeing it and they're feeling it every single day when they're making these purchases, and we know that the economy itself has a big role in whether or not people get reelected or elected into these presidential offices. So I believe that in 2024. There's gonna be even a bigger. I think that they're not gonna say it publicly because they'll be embarrassed or whatever. They don't want to be ridiculed by their friends and neighbors. But when it comes time to push the button, I think they're going to go in there and they're going to vote with their wallet. So I believe, to your point, that this is going to. I think that's why Trump's doing so well in the polls right now. I mean, people can say there's a lot of people who's coming around saying, you know what, I don't like the guy. I love the guy personally.
I love Trump. I wear a sexiest man alive Trump T-shirt every day. And so, but if you look at what he was able to do in the economy, I mean, we had the best economy in maybe the history of the U.S. under him, and lowest unemployment rate, every demographic. And I think that, yeah, I mean, I think despite everything going on, foreign policy wise, I think that people are going to go to the polls in November of 2024, and they're going to vote with their wallet, and they're going to oust not only Democrats, but these swampy Republicans who have just been going on and on and on with these ridiculous.
I think you're right too. It had the Uniparty rhinos and the DNC and their willing accomplices in the media hadn't stymied Trump every step of the way, blocked his efforts, and flat out lied and made up various people have been hit with that resolution or with that clarity. That had we gone on the path we were on, we would be 180 degrees out of phase from where we are now. I do want to go ahead and pull up one of these stories that we have here. I got a video for you.
Right before you do that, Mike, I want to give a quick shout out to CQ, Find Q in the Rumble chat. He just said, or she said, already gave to his campaign.
Yeah, the more people we can get that will actually fight for our values in Congress, the better chance we have of getting anything done. I mean, look at what's going on right now. If we had more people up there like Matt Gaetz and Byron Donalds and Anna Paulina Luna, more real fighters that would actually take our message to the people. I mean, that forces the rhinos to get in line too. If they're getting out there into the press and articulating what we want, and people will get. Speaking of somebody with no fortitude whatsoever, though, I do want to go ahead and I want to run a video for you, and I want to get your thoughts on this.
As an attorney who is also a Christian, I take my responsibilities as a lawyer very seriously. Presidential election, I believed that challenging the results on behalf of President Trump should be pursued in a just and legal way. I endeavored to represent my client to the best of my ability. I relied on others, including lawyers with many legislators in various states. What I did not do, but should have done, Your Honor, was to make sure that the facts the other lawyers alleged to be true were in fact true. In the frenetic pace of attempting to raise challenges to the election in several states, including Georgia, I failed to do my due diligence. I believe in and I value election integrity. If I knew then what I know now, I would have declined to represent Donald Trump in these post-election challenges. I look back on this whole experience with deep remorse. For those failures of mine, Your Honor, I have taken responsibility already before the Colorado.
So do you think they made her sit through a struggle session before that happened, or was this what she really thinks?
Look, I mean, here's a woman that paid.
Up.
Well, I'll jump in while we're waiting on Trent to come back. Then this bothers me because I was in a similar situation. You know what I mean? Like I was arrested for January 6th for peacefully protesting the election. They very much wanted me to throw President Trump under the bus. I refused to do so because number one, it wasn't nothing they wanted me to say was true, and I wasn't going to lie. Number one, in that regard, and wanted me to blame President Trump for my actions that day, and wanted me to say that I was wrong, that the election wasn't stolen. So those are some of the things they want me to say, and I refused to do that. I was, look, she took a plea deal and is getting 5 years of probation and like a $5,000 fine. I was facing 24 years in prison, and I did not throw President Trump under the bus. I ultimately took a plea deal. Absolutely. I've got 4 kids and didn't want to go to prison for 24 years. I went to prison for a few months instead. But so I'm not even faulting her for taking the plea deal because you're not going to win a lot of these cases. But I do fault her for turning her back on President Trump and throwing President Trump underneath the bus like that. And number two, it wasn't even necessary. She already had the plea deal in place, and she was already not going to prison. So I don't know why she did that.
Yeah.
You're good, man.
We're just going to assume it was your FBI hit. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, going back to Jen Ellis, I mean, here's a woman who raised $200,000,
Yeah.
in fees, and then turns around and pleads guilty. I mean, I don't know. I mean, all these people turning on Trump. I mean, Mark Meadows turned on Trump today. Saying that Trump knew that the election claims were false, but went out there and did it anyways. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, these are these spineless people that benefited off of his name, and now they don't need him anymore for whatever reason, and they're done. I mean, all these people are done. They'll never be in politics again. So.
Well, yeah, these people are the cancer that's in the Republican Party that needs to be excised. But you're right.
Yes.
Yeah, and I want to know something too with Jenna Ellis. So she raised $200,000, if I remember correctly, on whatever it was, Give, Send, Go, or whichever fundraising app, because she promised to fight these charges, whatever. So is that fraud now? Does she have to refund this? If you're a attorney general in one of these states right now, a good conservative, maybe you should look into that, because there need to be repercussions for both the disloyalty and the lying and getting this this plea deal of convenience.
Well, just from an ethical standpoint, Mike, she should return the money. That from an ethical standpoint, she should absolutely return the money because number one, or donate to somebody else who's in need. I mean, we've got the Michigan electors, we got more January 6th political prisoners right now, the Trump legal fund. I mean, so it's like if she pockets that money, then she should 100% be charged with something for those crimes. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I don't think she'll return the money, but she should. I mean, it should be returned back to the people. I mean, she went out there, demanding that, saying she was going to fight these charges, and then turns around and pleads guilty.
Yeah, well, I mean, a few of the other people that have taken plea deals, or like you said with Mark Meadows earlier, I thought they had more integrity than that and were a more reliable ally in the fight, but I guess not. And that's, I guess, part of the big problem is there are just so many rhinos and so many turncoats right now that we never know who we can really trust.
But
and
did they turn their back on Trump, Mike? Did they turn their? Did they? I don't know. Did Mark Meadows throw Trump under the bus as well, like Jenna did? I don't know.
Yeah, Mark Meadows threw him under the bus today.
Wow.
With Jack Smith, and over, he got immunity for doing it. He threw him under the bus today, saying that Trump knew that these election claims were false and went out there and perpetuated it anyways. I mean, these are the spineless cowards that we have in this country who claim to be conservatives, and they're just part of the swamp. It's like, at one point earlier when this all was going on, Mark Meadows says, "Oh no, Trump didn't know anything. We all thought this, whatever." Now he's turning around and these swampy Republicans want Jack Smith to continue to do what he's doing, because that's Jack Smith's whole motive, is to threaten and get these people to turn on Trump, and so that he won't run for president. And that's ultimately the goal. They don't want him back because they know he's going to expose everything they did.
Well, Man FM in the Rumble chat says that Jenna probably spent the money, doesn't even have it anymore to return it. And then Big Edict says we can't trust anyone. And I have to agree. But, it goes back to say, too, though, just how powerful and corrupt our government is, this weaponized DOJ, the weaponized court systems, all these things right now. I can tell you, I mean, from firsthand experience, I mean, I get it. They're under an immense pressure right now. I mean, your life, they literally have your life in their hands, and you're facing, I don't know how many years they were facing. I guess I was facing muddy and rough waters without falsely throwing people under the bus. I mean, you don't have to. That's what I don't understand right now. I mean, I'm perfectly fine if they wanted to say, hey, I'll take my plea deal, take what I can get, and serve my time and move on. But like, why are you throwing President Trump under the bus and other people under the bus? And I can tell you right now, if they do have to go to prison, I've been there. Them turning around and doing this to their co-defendants,
it's unfortunate. I mean, these are people that Trump trusted, to go out there and help push his agenda. Now they're cowards. They're turning on him, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I guess at this point I can't necessarily say that they're all cowards, because some people haven't come out and made these kind of statements to the media.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I do think, especially like Meadows or Jenna Ellis, they're spineless opportunists. They wanted to ride the wave up when Trump was in power and stand by his side and tout his policies. But the minute things got rough, or the minute there was any pressure put on them, all of a sudden they crack, they cave, and they just spew to the media whatever it is that the uniparty wants them to say. They just become that mouthpiece. Oh, I never believed this, blah, 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 blah. I wasn't part of this. Trump knew the whole time. Well, if that was true, why didn't you say, we know that these corrupt judges and corrupt DOJ prosecutors are just going to go right along with it. They'll hold them up like they're a hero. You're now the patron saint of lawfare because you took the deal and went along with what we're doing.
Well, and look, even Bill Barr went on national TV, as his attorney general right after the election, that said, yeah, there was fraudulent stuff going on in the election, but nothing that's going to rise to overturning the election. So he even admitted that there was fraud in the election, but again, he was a coward. He didn't do what he should have been doing as attorney general at the time. So I mean, even he admitted there was. So for these people to say that no, there wasn't, it's asinine. So.
Well, once again, they stole the election, not only from President Trump, from the American people across this country. And then they turned around and arrested anyone who had the courage to stand up and actually protest or speak out against it, or even the Michigan electors who they didn't even go to D.C. They just signed a piece of paper that said that's literally all these people did. And they're facing decades in prison. Most of them are 70, 80-year-old grandparents. This is what we are seeing, true communism in this country right now. And that's why we need people like Trent in there right now. We need America First fighters. This is not the time for patty cake politics. This is not the time for grandmas and such who are going to be right now in a battle for the future of this country. Yeah. And we're not going to get there by playing patty cake politics. We need America First fighters, people who are willing to not only stand up and fight, but actually accept the consequences that may come from that. Obviously, Jenna Ellis, Mark Meadows, those people are not willing to accept those consequences the way that I have and so many others have done so. But that's what it's going to take moving forward. And if you're not willing to do that, I'm not talking to Trent because I know Trent is. If you're not willing to do that, then go home. Don't run for office and let somebody like Trent run for office so we can get some fighters in there.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this. I believe that the real insurrection was on November 3rd.
What that's led to, I want to go ahead and bring up one more story here. I know we're getting low on time here, but Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton files lawsuit against the Biden regime for cutting razor wire at the southern border. This is illegal. And the reason I wanted to go ahead and get to this is Ken Paxton's been one of the only AGs in the entire country, if not the only AG, really fighting back against the Biden regime, and there's been an effort to silence him too. And again, we saw a bunch of Republicans, rhinos in Texas, go along with this and almost impeach him. So I guess I kind of want to get your thoughts both on Ken Paxton, and I know we kind of touched on the border earlier, but at this point, I mean, I'm ready to put our military down there and just form a defensive line, because we can't allow this to continue, especially with what's going on in the Middle East right now with Hamas. There's already cells within our country. I mean, the threat is real, but we're pretending that we'll be fine, that somehow we're going to, I don't know, think our way out of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ken Paxton is a true, America hero, and he's a true American patriot. I mean, what he's had to endure over the last several months with the Bush holdovers in Texas that are nothing but rhinos, and they want him out of there,
Yeah.
And it's like, but look, I mean, we're at war here. We have an invasion going on in the southern border, and so this whole talk of Biden, I mean, our military should be down there. They should be down there. Why? Because we do know now that terrorists have flooded over our southern border. And you know
Yeah.
what? How do we not know the next terrorist attack? Where's it going to be? In the United States somewhere, and there are cells that are popping up, and and they're coming in through country in this world that doesn't have tough immigration laws, and we don't. We're lax. We're like, hey, come on in, we want you. Why? Because the Democrats want their votes.
Anytime in the history of this entire world, if what was happening right now, they'd be met with military force, deadly
Yeah.
force if need be, to put a stop to this. And so, I mean, I agree. I lost my account on Twitter for saying that, so I stand by it, though. It really speaks volumes, though, to really probably what the internal polling and stuff is showing, and the fact that the Biden regime is even discussing, we know that they're not going to your point, but the fact that they're even discussing building the border wall and everything shows you just how fed up the American people are right now with the invasion on the southern border. They're so fed up, and they're probably getting so many calls to actually start discussing the border.
Yeah, I mean, it's look, I mean, people are fed up. They're fed up because we have people flowing into this country, and here's what's funny is when you have conservative states shipping these illegals to the Democrat-run cities, and now the
Yeah. New York,
Democrat-run
Chicago.
cities,
Yeah.
we have all these illegals, and the crime is through the roof. I mean, go downtown Denver, Colorado, and you're going to see tent cities on every major street down there, and it's like we got this immigration issue is just it's flooding everywhere. We're seeing it everywhere, and really it's costing American lives by all the drugs and crime that's flowing into this country.
Well, not to mention the human trafficking aspect of it, as I want to put them, and a lot of that is unfortunately still in Texas, where you now have these huge areas, huge swaths of space where we're bringing in temporary housing or converting old malls and Walmarts into housing for illegal aliens, and then we don't know where the kids are being trafficked to. I mean, they've already lost over 85,000 kids where they just have no idea where they went to. They just disappeared into our country. So there's going to be consequences and repercussions for all this. And if we don't start taking serious steps to fix some of these problems, it is only going to get worse. I mean, the traffic of the border is not slowing down. It's increasing. And that's at a time where we have literal threats. And with the border open as wide as it is, if we've caught around 170 known terrorists coming over the border, how many else have gotten through? Because if you're on a list, you're not going to go through any of the known checkpoints. You're going to try to hop over somewhere and then disappear into society at a time when we're not really checking or doing anything to protect ourselves.
Yeah, I would assume for every one they catch, 3 get away.
Yeah.
And
Probably.
so but you bring up a great point on the human trafficking side of things, and how many, tens of thousands of minor children that have just they've gone missing. And come on, that's all human trafficking, period. I don't
Yeah.
care how anybody tries to spin that. I mean, the drug cartels, they bring these kids to the border, they throw them across the border and go, and get paid thousands of dollars to do this. And it's all, I mean, look, it's the biggest industry.
It's this taxation without representation. Ricochet Rabbit says there's over 20 divisions of military-age men coming across the border. And then I wanted to just quickly say that every town right now is a border town with the drugs and everything that's coming across. I mean, I live in West Virginia, but I mean, it's affecting us here as well. And then the Big Edict asked a question: how are these people able to vote? Are they registering them? And of course, they are in some way. But the big thing that not a lot of people talk about, everybody wants to talk about, are they voting or not? And then the Democrats, oh, they're not able to vote, blah, blah, blah. So I like to focus on this aspect that not a lot of people discuss, is whether they vote or not, they're included in the population for the census, which determines the congressional representation for each state. So even if they're not voting like officially, each member of Congress, however many, so these people flooding across the border coming into these states, they are counted in that census. And so therefore, you have some small rural states like West Virginia, who are red states, who are losing congressional representation. And then they're getting picked up by some of these other blue areas because of the illegals who are moving there. So that's something that's really changed the congressional, not only the congressional makeup, but the electoral college in terms of how many points each state is worth now. So not a lot of people are talking about that, but I think that's the bigger aspect in terms of rather than just actual voting.
Yeah, I mean, you look here in Colorado. I mean, we're even though we're not on the border, we are a border state, a border city, and
Sure.
our Secretary of State here, Jenna Griswold, was caught last election cycle sending out 300,000 ballots to illegal immigrants, and when she got caught, oops, it was an error by our system. Really, I mean. I thought we didn't know where these congressional district here in Colorado, congressional district 8, and the way they rigged that district and gerrymandered that district, 67% of the population in that district is now Hispanic. And to your point, how many of those are illegals? And so, if you look at the map and you're like, how in the heck did they draw this? They drew it intentionally so that, it'll always vote Democrat.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know if it will if it's that high percentage Hispanic, considering the way the Democrat popularity is trending right now.
yeah.
But you're right. I mean, shouldn't that list the 300,000 illegal aliens within the confines of we instead have this idea of sanctuary states, until it becomes time to do sanctuary stuff, and then all of a sudden you want to bail out from the federal government, then it becomes a major problem.
Yeah, I mean, Colorado's a sanctuary state, and pretty much every city here, major cities, a sanctuary city, and what it's. I mean, it's hurting everyday Coloradoans here, and the crime is just through the roof. I mean, it's we have progressive DAs who are letting these criminals back out on the street. They're refusing and they're under order not to work with ICE, and us, we're not giving you money. Period.
Yeah.
you know and so why should we? I mean, there's a reason why they want them here. There's a reason, because if you didn't want them here, then you would cooperate with the federal government, you would cooperate with ICE, and you would get them out of here. But they're all under direction and order not to do it. But really, they're not anymore, because the Biden administration isn't going to do anything. So
Well, you were talking about the oopsie. Sorry, we accidentally sent that out. We didn't mean to. Kind of reminds me of when they oopsie fat fingered billions of.
$6 billion.
I mean, gosh almighty, man. Like, this is just further proof that the government is not efficient at anything.
well, and you look at Mike, you look at Ken Buck, the Rhino. I mean, he is a staunch reporter, supporter of Ukraine, and that was one of his sticking points. Was, I'm not going to vote for any Speaker of the House that's going to defund what's going on with Ukraine. And it's like, I mean, this is, look, when we talk about what's going on overseas, we funded both sides. The Biden administration funded both sides of this deal. We're at war, and we're on the brink of a nuclear weapon being used somewhere in the world. And
Yep.
it's solely on the doorsteps of the White House, where our illegitimate president lives.
Every day. But you're right. These rhinos and the Biden regime, the policy is to put America last. They refuse to do what our country needs right now, and instead take every step they possibly can to send more and more of our money and more and more of our material overseas. Right now, where we are on the verge of World War III, we don't have enough bullets to fight a war. I mean, how pathetic is that? Lake City's had to cut off civilian sales, so has every other small arms manufacturer that the U.S. contracts to make, 5.56 and 7.62 NATO rounds for the military. We're out of what is it? Some howitzer round. I can't remember what it is now. That Ukraine invaded for more than 36 hours. So we are on the ropes right now. If China, Russia, or whoever wants to do something major, we don't have the resources to really fight back, and this is because we've been sending over $100 billion to Ukraine. We're now getting ready to potentially send more funding to Israel, and China's got their eyes on Taiwan. So expect that to pop off here soon too.
Well, and don't forget the $86 billion worth of equipment that we left in Afghanistan that are now
Oh,
being used to
yeah.
defend, at us.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Well, don't worry.
that's how they're.
That's on its way towards Israel now. So don't worry.
I was reading a story, I believe, of some Americans, soldiers, troops who were injured.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Or
Yeah, I can go ahead and pull this up. Give me 1 second. Yep, wrong slide. Sorry, technical difficulties. Yeah, so 24 U.S. soldiers were wounded in drone attacks by Iran-backed militias. And we did get the word about some of this over the last few days, so this isn't something that just happened. But what I just saw right before we got on air, and I'm sorry, this is from Zero Hedge, so it's from a different source in both Iraq and Syria. These are all minor injuries, or primarily minor injuries, nothing too serious. Everybody's expected to live. But they sandbagged it. They didn't put this story out because they didn't want the bad press coverage as it was happening over the last few days. So instead, little tidbits were leaked out, and they waited to drop this until, late in the evening on a Tuesday, so nobody sees it.
The 13 military personnel that died there, and how that somehow 18 months later was Trump's fault. I mean, I think a lot of
Right.
people, understand that this administration is a disaster, and it is a failure, and it'll go down as the worst administration, I believe, in the history of our country. And like I said, we funded both sides, so every single service member that gets injured, it's the Biden administration's fault.
yep.
Well,
They
yeah.
unfroze $6 billion to Iran, and then turns around and gives $4 billion to Israel, who that there was peace on both sides.
Well,
And
and something else not a lot of people were talking about. Remember, Brittany Griner was over in Russia, and we moved heaven and earth to get her released released back to so he could play in the WNBA. But we have American hostages right now. Hamas has American hostages. What is the illegitimate Biden regime doing to get these people home who are really being held captive to no fault of their own? It's not like they broke the law like Brittany did when he went over there and did that. But I mean, so it just once again, the priorities here are out of whack.
well, they are out of whack, and it's whatever, look, it's all this woke politics that we live today, and that's what we've seen. I mean, giving up five. What was it? A few years ago, we gave up. Was it the Obama administration giving up five cares? Let them stay
Yeah, Bo
there.
Bergdahl.
Yeah, Birdahl. Yeah, so it's just it's look, this administration does not care about the American people. It does not care about our borders. It's playing these woke politics, and so it's a disaster what's going on. And I feel bad for these service members, as a
What
former military person. And it's every death that happens, every injury that happens, the Biden administration's at fault for it.
Well,
Yeah.
don't forget that basketball player for just because it's a black person over a black celebrity, if you will, over a veteran who's sitting over there in the same jail cell as Brittany was. It's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, look, Trump gets a lot of flack for saying how smart Putin is or saying how smart she is. I can go into Taiwan because the Biden administration ain't going to do nothing about
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah, the lights are on, but nobody's home. There's no way we're going to respond if China does anything to Taiwan right now, and it's not like we have the capability at this point with two carrier groups in the Middle East and limited ammunition. But I think you really hit the nail on the head a minute ago when you said they don't take responsibility, that even Afghanistan, that was somehow Trump's fault. That's part of what we see over and over again from the Biden regime is led to believe. But I do think it's gotten to the point where the nation as a whole is not buying it. Even Democrats are not buying a lot of the excuses that the Biden regime is churning out. And I think we see that reflected in the polls, especially now. I just saw this earlier today. I should have thrown a slide together for this. That now that Kennedy's getting in the race, you kept hearing this is going to hurt Trump, and it may have pulled a few points away from him. But with a three-way race now with Trump, RFK Jr., and that's running on the Green Party,
West.
Cornel West. Yeah, that sucks another 4 points out of Biden's sales. So, I mean, it's an unwinnable race for the Biden regime, unless they somehow manage to take Trump off the ballot. And I think that's really going to be the end goal in their game. Do you see any path that they'll actually be able to?
No, even here in Colorado, where they're fighting to keep Trump off the ballot, and I know the Trump administration is fighting that. It'll probably go all the way to the Supreme Court, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, they don't want him because they know he's going to expose everything they've done, not just after another, after another, after another. And, look, we're not conspiracy theorists anymore. We're realists. We know exactly what's going on. We've seen the evidence. We've seen the proof. And so, yeah, unless they throw Michelle Obama in the race at the last minute, Trump's going to win this.
Agreed.
Well, yeah, and I'd say that's a pretty strong possibility, especially the closer we get to the race. They're going to have to airdrop in somebody because the Biden regime doesn't have a prayer right now. But I don't even know if Big Mike can save him at this point because they've left such a bad taste in everybody's mouth. They haven't done anything. And with this split is never somebody I would vote for. But I do think he's much closer to the Democrats of like the 1980s that were more tolerable than the current crop. So I do think you're going to have a percentage of the population that goes that direction no matter what, just because they are tired of what's going on today and how far left the Democrats have been drugged by the radicals, if you want to call them that, within their party. Even though in reality, that's the base of who they are now. The radicals have become the mainstream.
Than they've ever been because if you look at the Kennedy type Democrats in the 60s, I mean, they're really conservative. I mean, they were about secure borders and jobs and, the American dream. Whereas here it's all about entitlements now and progressive woke policies and transgenderism and LGBTQ times 15, whatever all the numbers and letters are. And that's what's more important. And really what scares me is are our military personnel ready to go fight? Because they've been indoctrinated into the military, and I don't think we'll be prepared. I mean, I really feel like we already are in World War III. It's just a matter of who launches a weapon first.
Agreed.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, I'm sure the Biden regime will make sure they all get their proper pronoun charts in Hebrew, Arabic, and whatever else they need before the ground invasion starts over there. So we'll all be saved. Where is the best
campaign? Obviously, is donating to my campaign. They can go to my website, www.trentleisy.com, or they can follow me on Twitter at Real Trent Leisy. They can find the rest of my social media links on my website. But the best way is spread the word, donate, volunteer. They can go to my website and fill out the volunteer form. I tell you what, since our launch last Sunday, the guy's a stud. And, this guy, what he's been able to do in the last 8 days with social media is just, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now if it wasn't for him. So, I have to thank him for that.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, man. We've really enjoyed it. We'll have to have you back sometime. And obviously, hope that you defeat that rhino, Ken Buck, and get another America First Patriot into Congress. Thanks for being here, man.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for being here. And Reed Cooper, we're going to message you next, try to get you on here in the next news. The mainstream media doesn't want you to hear it to even more people. I have lost my ability to speak tonight. I just need to go home. I am home. Never mind. But thank you for joining us tonight. And we're going to be back on Friday with even more. Thank you.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. On infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections.
If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want it, until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious.
Violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings. Remember, they are coming after me because I am fighting for you. That's what's happening.